I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission, Thursday, October 10th, 2019, and we are in the Novato City Council chambers today because of the Novato MSR that we're talking about later. And Candace, would you go ahead and call the roll?
Sashi McEntee.
Here.
Craig K. Murray is absent. Alternate Todd Moody.
Here.
Sloan Bailey.
Here.
Lou Caius.
Here.
Damon Conley is absent, and his alternate is also absent, so empty seat. Dennis Rodoni.
Present.
Larry Loader.
Here.
Alternate seated in the audience, well, on the other side, Matt Brown.
Hello.
Roll has been taken, and we have quorum.
Thank you very much, Candace. Okay, we will move, we'll move to agenda review. Jason, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, on the agenda today, there's a request from the applicant for file item number 5. He has a plane to catch, so we were hoping perhaps you could rearrange the agenda a little bit, do the Novato MSR, because there is the largest number of people here for that, and then switch items 4 and 5 around so we can get to the file application for Tiburon Sanitary District Number 2 annexation.
So, I'm sorry, he needs to leave by 8 o'clock, you said?
8:30, I believe, is what he had requested.
Okay, so we don't need to move it before
Yeah, I
the
mean,
Novato MSR? Okay.
correct. Yeah, correct.
Okay. Anybody have any issue with that? No? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. So we will do 1, 2, 3, 5, 4 here. Okay, we'll move on to public open time. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the current agenda. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing or will be placed on the commission's agenda for consideration at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Does anyone want to comment on anything that is not on the current agenda? Seeing none, I will close public open time. And moving on to the consent calendar. Does anyone from the commission or the audience want to pull anything from the consent calendar? No? Okay, do I have any discussion? Any public comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with 2 items tonight.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Could I abstain from the first one, the minutes? I wasn't here, but
Okay.
otherwise, yes.
Okay. So motion carries with Commissioner Bailey abstaining from the minutes. Okay, so we will move on to item number 3, which is the Municipal Service Review presentation by Plan West on the Novato Area Municipal Service Review. Jason?
Yeah, sure. Jason Fried, your executive officer. Today you will hear from George, who is with Plan West Partners. He made the drive down again, as you remember last time. He presented on San Rafael. They are also the ones that did the Novato region for us. Once we're done with these 2 MSRs, we will thank George for all of his hard work, and we'll be moving into in-house MSRs, moving past the Novato one. So I will invite George up, who will give a presentation, since a lot of the information was similar to last time. We shortened the first part down so we could get to the meat of the MSR itself.
Thank you, members of the commission. George Williamson, Plan West Partners. Tonight it is the Novato Regional MSR, and here's our cover sheet. So as Jason said, we had some slides. We took out the slides that are about the organization, since I believe most, if not all of you, heard the San Rafael presentation. So we wanted to get right to the presentation on Novato. And tonight we're going to be looking at the city of Novato, Novato Fire Protection District, the Sanitary District, and a couple of CSAs. So your responsibility in LAFCO overview is to consider the MSR requirements and scope, and those are included right up front in the document that you have before you tonight in draft form. And the municipal services we look at in the review, we start with profiling the agencies, And then the agencies get an opportunity to see those profiles and comment on that, and that helps us. That really is a good first step because it starts the communications, the relationship, understanding what we're proposing or what we're in scope to do, and your staff provides a great conduit and a coordination through that. So it's great when agencies are very busy, especially the staff, and Jason and his staff were most helpful in getting helping get some responses from us or for us. So agencies comment, then they get another chance to see the determinations in B, and then what we're doing tonight is presenting and going through a revision process so that we, you and your staff can consider a final. And I've got a schedule for that. Oop. I'm going the wrong way. No wonder that didn't work. These are the regional service considerations, population and growth, similar to what we took you through last time. Disadvantaged unincorporated communities, unincorporated islands. We have those in San Rafael, and there's a few here in Novato. Climate change. Climate change continues to be just a critical issue, and it's something we pay particular attention to. And then also regional planning. There's a lot of coordination going on between these agencies, and we really wanted to capture that. And then opportunity for shared services. I think that there's really some good opportunities here with agencies that are providing very similar services. So what we hope you'll use this for is any consideration on any subsequent sphere of influence updates, informing future boundary changes. Should unincorporated islands be considered for annexation, you will have a much better understanding of the service issues associated with those annexations as appropriate. And then initiating government reorganizations as appropriate, consolidations and mergers. And there's a real trend throughout California to look at consolidations, and MSRs are a critical predecessor to those. So this work that we do and that you're reviewing tonight really will help inform consolidations and mergers. And a lot of times these MSRs get people thinking about along those lines. I did a regional MSR for another group of independent fire districts, and I just heard last week that they are considering a consolidation, and they got to see through the MSR just how their interrelationships and opportunities for shared services could look. So these MSRs have a real value in getting those agencies thinking about consolidations and mergers and cooperative services. So the sphere timeline, we got going in the spring with the regional setting, agency profiles, early summer. Through summer, we were working with the member organizations on service evaluations, determinations. We're here tonight, October, for the draft public review. And then this final will be coming back once we've considered all the comments, incorporated revisions, heard from you, hopefully, and making a final document, much the same as you'll be considering later tonight. Jason's presenting the San Rafael MSR. And there were some great suggestions that came out of San Rafael that we've brought forward. We heard suggestions about the tables, just having a table right up front that captures agency meeting times and whether they're televised. That I always learn from doing these, and that was the first time I've heard a comment on to that extent, but that was incorporated into San Rafael, and it's right up front in the in this document that you have in draft form presented tonight. The other great suggestion was, I believe from the chair, was at the end, not just put the references in there, but where there is a web link or another internet or another web-based reference, that those are right in there. You can actually scroll to the back of the document, click on that link, and use your browser to take you to the information that is referenced right there. So it's a great resource to have in these documents, and we incorporated it in San Rafael and recognized the real value of it, and it's in this document at the end you have this evening. So here are the agencies. Obviously, the broadest service area is Novato FPD, and they were also, I believe, Chief Tyler is here tonight, and he was most helpful to us in providing information and has made some really valuable comments on that portion of the regional MSR. Second, I believe in size is, comparable Novato Sanitary District, and then the city of Novato. Belmarin Keys occupies that small area right on San Pablo Bay, very limited to just some lagoon management and some other issues. And then you've got a couple of CSAs, Loma Verde, Indian Valley, and then an inactive CSA that's another real value of these, where a CSA has fulfilled its function, proven its purpose. Those can be dissolved, and this is another way of documenting how that's appropriate, and working with and it also saves a little bit. I believe the state controller is a lot more amenable to just taking that off when there's a supporting document in the MSR. So here again, City of Novato, typical city services, parks, police, roads, flood control, street lighting. Novato Sanitary District, I'm very familiar with sanitary districts handling wastewater and recycled water, but having the solid waste collection function within that district makes a lot of sense, and was very encouraged how they're contracting for that, but also implementing zero waste policies and other source reduction measures. Belmarin Keys, lagoon maintenance, parks and rec, public facilities. And then 3 CSAs, Loma Verde for meridian maintenance, lighting, open space, and then Indian Valley, parks and recreation. And then the last one for county parks is CSA 25. And as many times as I read these and carefully consider, I made a mistake not in the content, but in the numbering. For Belmarin Keys, the numbering is Novato, I think, is 5 or 6, Fire Protection District 7. We started with Belmarin Keys at 8, but unfortunately, we use a numbering convention in our Word docs, and somehow it kicked to the next number. But anyway, the content's fine. There is a misnumbering within the Belmarin Keys that we will fix in the final. And then, what are the regional outcomes? Having a single regional fire agency, that was an issue that we talked about in San Rafael, and with the Novato Fire Protection District and the single agency service, we just thought that was a great way to deliver service there. High capacity, quality service. They are engaging in long-term planning. They're seeking funding to fill vacancies in risk reduction, prevention, mitigation. And I just want to read a comment. This came just from Chief Tyler, and it was a comment that he provided us just this week. You'll be getting it in the revisions, but just acknowledging the vulnerability and the fact that wildfire doesn't respect jurisdictional boundaries, and that with climate change and increased risk, it really does take a number of agencies. And the Novato Fire Protection District, per this comment, partnering with Fire Safe Marin, fire agencies, the county, cities and towns, and they're moving forward on a county-wide wildfire prevention program, and hope to are looking at a JPA, and they've got 4 bulleted items that they think the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority mission would cover: wildfire detection and evacuation system improvements, vegetation management and fire hazard reduction, defensible space and home hardening evaluations, public education and neighborhood wildfire preparedness, and local specific wildfire prevention agencies. In my experience, these are the core activities that fire prevention agencies need to be engaged in, and it's just really encouraging that these guys are being proactive and taking this on and working cooperatively to make Marin fire safe. So I was most encouraged by that. Wastewater, the sanitary district, single provider, covers the entire region. There's great continuity there, working with Upgrade. They're committed to upgrading the aging infrastructure and in long-term planning. So that was very encouraging to see that Sandeep and his staff and his board are all committed to those. And then recreation. Marin is a recreation hub, and you are blessed with so much open space, trails, and there's such opportunity for recreation here. You've got multiple providers in the region, and what we were seeing through the MSR process is there are some opportunities to better serve residents, but I think those are being considered, those are under review, and plans are being made to bring those into effect. So on every single core service, what we found through this MSR was that these agencies are looking at both what needs to be served now for the existing constituency, but also what needs to be done to prepare for future. As one of you said while we were having pizza, living in interesting times, and these agencies, I think, understand that and are planning for that. So just to continue on to wrap up, for roads, city and county are service providers. There is going to be inundation of roads for sea level rise in and around San Pablo Bay. That's being planned for. There are rising costs associated with that. And one of the things that we're encouraging is for the city to continue cost reduction and alternative funding sources for transportation. In dredging, that's just Bell Marin Keys. And while there is some unfunded dredging, they've got a few years to really work that funding process and try to develop that for that purpose. And then just acknowledging and planning, even though LAFCO isn't a planning organization, we're still very keen on how communities are allocating land uses, and recognizing that the city and the county are land use authorities. And while water or sewer are provided by some of the other agencies, there's a real challenge to plan for growth. And we have a recommendation about developing a Novato planning area. We just think that for the city, that's an idea worth pursuing, to have a planning area then that just notifies the city or the county that that is a area that the city wants to be involved in as planning proposals come forward. And it's something that can be incorporated in the general plan. It's just a good way to prompt that city-county coordination on land use issues.
George, before you move on that,
Yeah.
on that particular point, can you talk about what the difference between a planning area and a sphere of influence or a urban growth boundary? other tools that people have used in the past for that purpose. Can you kind of explain what a planning area would be?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And that's something that Jason and I have a little different perspective on, but that's good. From my perspective, spheres are for making the best service extension decisions. Where are those services and who should be providing those services? And that is absolutely in your domain, and LAFCO has the complete authority on spheres of influence. And so it's got a service function, but a planning area has, in my experience, more of a land use function. And you can even put city land use designations within a planning area, saying these are the land uses that we think, the city, in this case Novato, thinks that should be considered for those areas. And then we can see how well they match up, how well they correlate. So the differences between service and planning area emphasis, but they work well together. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and you said that the planning area could be added into the general plan.
It could, yes, and we've seen that. It's happening more and more. It's right in the OPR guidelines. There's a clear path for setting up planning areas, and they work, and they are really effective in prompting that city-county coordination.
If I can just put a little bit of, excuse me, a little bit of context behind this. Remember, Novato is the only place in Marin County that has an urban growth boundary. And because of that urban growth boundary, it limits what we can do outside of the urban growth boundary, or what the city has outside of the urban
When you
growth
say
boundary.
we, what limits what we can do?
I'm sorry, yeah. We would be what the city can do and what LAFCO's interaction is with the city when it has a parcel just on the other side of city boundaries, which is what the urban growth boundary also cuts to exactly. Based on how things work, we really don't have LAFCO doesn't have a discussion and the county doesn't have to have a discussion with Novato on things that occur just on the other side of the boundary. So what we were trying to do, and this was George and I trying to figure this out, is how do we have a way for Novato to have a discussion with the county, to have a discussion with LAFCO, and this planning area is one way that they can then do that. Because then we can see, LAFCO can see, and the county can see, oh, they have an interest in this area because they've made a designation, even though they're not going to expand to it because their urban growth boundary doesn't allow them to. This gives us the opportunity to have a way to do that. And that's why we were coming up with this specifically for Novato. We don't have to worry about this anywhere else in the county because we don't have urban growth boundaries anywhere else in this county.
Okay, and is the planning area something that's in government code or is it in? Yeah.
It's in the OPR guidelines.
Okay.
Governor's Office of Planning and Research, sorry. Try not to use too many acronyms. So wrapping up, public comment closes this week. And again, we've already got some very good comments. We looked at some of the sanitary district funding. We originally reported some numbers in the draft. Sandeep caught those, and what he really helped us understand and what he really explained is the annual capital expenditures follow a different spending trajectory than some of the basic budgeting, because that is the long-term view where the capital expenditures. And so how those get plugged in are take a little different perspective. So those comments are in the record. We appreciate those very much being explained to us. There's been a change in the board of directors. That Sandeep caught, and just to clarify, the district has an overall AAA financial rating as assigned by Standard & Poor's, and we want to make sure that that is so valuable in borrowing money and getting funding for those needed infrastructure investments. And so, and also just acknowledging that the district won the prestigious award in financial reporting achievement from in financial reporting from the comprehensive, from a group that I can't quite pronounce. But anyway, it was a good thing. And so I just want to make sure that, these agencies are fiscally responsible, really taking care in their financing, and we just want to make sure we're getting credit for that. So Jason will be presenting to the Sanitary District Board next Monday. We've already got comments, like we talked about, from Sanitary District, Fire District. We're going to be doing some follow-ups, including my renumbering, and then we're going to be giving a draft back to you for December, just before Christmas, the holidays. And any questions?
Any questions from the commission?
I have one question. I think I know why this isn't included, but the College Marin is right smack dab in the middle of this thing, and when they do things, it impacts Novato.
Which,
College Marin, Indian Valley College,
oh, okay.
is right in the middle, and
Yeah.
and a lot of students come and go, and parents come and swim at the pool, and it's a pretty busy place, but there's no mention of it or in the MSR.
Yeah, colleges, school districts are not under LAFCO's jurisdiction, so we don't directly look at them. If there was something that maybe was impacting the city of Novato and we need to look at it from that aspect, we could. Or one of the other districts, if it was impacting them, we absolutely could look at it, but we don't look at educational institutions. State government code forbids us from doing it, actually.
So even though traffic's an impact on Novato,
We rely on the city to manage the traffic.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Jason, did you have any other comments?
Sure. Yeah, just some follow-up stuff. So today is an informational item only. We still have public comment to have for the public hearing to occur. Today, the goal is to take public comment in as we did with San Rafael last time. We will come back. In theory, we should come back at the next meeting with our final draft, depending on any last-minute comments that come in. Tomorrow, as was mentioned, is the last day for public comment, although I purposely am going to give an exemption for anything that I learn at the Novato Sanitary District Board meeting on Monday. I will incorporate those comments in as well and give them to George to help incorporate into the final document. Just happened to be when they met and when I could get to their meeting was the Monday after our deadline. So I'm extending it to them so we could incorporate that in.
Would you allow any other comments to trickle in on Monday, since you're letting that?
At the end of the day, like, we have a little bit of leeway. We have a hard deadline for one purpose, but if someone sent me a comment over the weekend or sent me something on Monday or heard me say something at Monday's meeting and sent me a comment on Tuesday, I'm not just going to throw it out of hand. I mean, we will take a look at anything that we can. There does come a point when George has to get everything into the system and do his work, but, we do take comments very seriously.
Okay. All right, so then I will now open the public hearing. If you'd like to speak, for those of you who didn't come in or came in afterwards, there are some forms in the back, and the purpose of the forms is so that Candace can get your name correct in the minutes. Sir, I see you're raising your hand. Are you one of these people? Okay. Oh, okay. Well, you're actually on the top of my list here. Is it Bob Abeling? Okay, and is there a way we can get a microphone to him over there, or?
I think I can speak loud enough.
But we wanted to pick, we did it for the recording, yeah.
Jared has a microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
And did I say your name correctly, sir? Bob Abeling, is that
Bob
correct?
Abeling, 1625, 1645 Indian Valley Road in the unincorporated area of Novato. And I would ask the commission to extend the time period for comments. By luck, I happened to speak to Jason and ask to get the minutes and agendas of your commission. That's the only way I found out. I informed one or two other people that live in the unincorporated area. So I don't think that's a very open system for, contacting. Also, the other comment would be, I'm surprised that your person you contracted with did not contact the three unincorporated areas, the golf course, part of Loma Verde, and all of Indian Valley Associates. we have 327 parcels in our area. 12 of them are duplicate owners, so there's 350, let's say. Give you a little history. One time, 2 members wanted to have the Novato Sanitary District come out and become part of NSD. 4 of us did a personal survey and have the written records. 93% did not want to go into that, mainly for the possibility of incorporation into the city of Novato. Cynthia Murray was in attendance when the UGB was formed, and we were officially removed from the sphere of influence. There is 46 acres in the open space, which is city property, but it is actually that little finger in regards to the 1,561 plus acres of open space is actually city property. So the other thing, I would like some better clarification on what unincorporated islands are. Is, 660 acres an island? That I would like to find out what constitutes an island. And I think those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jason, are we doing a clock for the comments? Okay. All right, so the next one I have is Craig Knowlton.
Good evening, Craig Knowlton, Indian Valley. And I'm also on the board of Indian Valley Associates and CSA 20. And I just, like Bob was saying, I just became aware of this document even existed probably an hour ago, so I read it, my section pretty quickly. I don't agree with the unincorporated island definition for our area. We border Novato. We are not surrounded by them. And, we're Marin County, and we've always been Marin County. We strongly oppose any additional influence by the city, up to and including annexation. We have a history of that. This board has been instrumental in that side of it as well. I'm still trying to get a grasp about the planning area concept. Obviously, if that includes more influence by the city of Novato, we will strongly oppose that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and then, that's it for Novato. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the Novato MSR? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any further discussion. Anybody?
I guess I do have the question about the extension of the comments period. Jason, what are your thoughts about that, considering the comments that were made? And Sasha, what are you?
I am fine extending it by a little bit. I'll talk with the applicants, see how, or the, not the applicant, the members of the public who just made comments, see how long it will take them to get a few folks and see what comments they want to make.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's important to have public comments,
Yes.
and we shouldn't cut that off just because they weren't notified. So it seems like a reasonable request.
No, I'm fine with that.
And Jason, do you want to maybe talk about what the noticing process was, just so that?
Yeah, sure. So what we do is I reach out to organizations that I'm aware of, and as you know, I'm relatively still new to Marin County, so I'm relying on the help of others to give me lists of organizations. Unfortunately, one of the organizations that was mentioned was not on my list, so that's why they would not have gotten this. But I did send this around to, I think it was at least 6 or 7 groups off the top of my head that did get this notice from the general public and sent it around. There's not as many in the Novato area as there was in the San Rafael area, so it was a little bit harder to get word out, but I did my best to do so. But like I said, if there's someone that doesn't know about it, I'm happy to extend and give them a little more time.
Well, and we don't typically do mailers or anything. We don't have that kind of budget. So if there are groups that, in this process we discover would like to be communicated with, and we can get their contact information, neighborhood associations, things like that, that's something you would welcome and would like to
Yeah, absolutely.
have for the next.
And just say what, because it didn't exist before, I couldn't find it anywhere in our server, is I'm actually creating a master list for each regional MSR of any groups that we contacted this time, so we know we have them next time. So I'll make sure to get these two groups into the system.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did close the public hearing. If there are other comments
I
that
just
we,
wanted to clarify the notifications. I'm one of 4 board members of CSA 20.
Did your staff for the CSA did not inform you of this? I was relying on them to inform the board members.
That's entirely possible if they did not.
Okay.
I'm on that board. I did not receive notice of this on that side.
Okay. I will have a chat to make sure that, see what happened on that side.
okay, Commissioner Bailey, you've been waiting.
Yeah, and this question I think is from Mala. I appreciate, by the way, that we want to do better, but Mala, what exactly are the legal requirements to satisfy notice? Like, how does it have to be published? What's the standard?
If you give me a minute, I'll pull that up.
Oh, okay, I didn't mean to, I thought it was something you just knew. No worries.
From the official notice side, we do have to put a notice in the public paper, no, we just have to make a notice on the agenda for the draft item.
Did we put the notice in the paper?
No,
No, we didn't.
it's
Okay.
not required for this item.
Okay. We are operating on a lean budget, so they're part of that. Commissioner Rodoni.
I just had a question whether Jason or the consultant wanted to comment on the outreach to the communities right outside the city boundaries. I think that's one of the issues that they.
That's my responsibility. The consultant's job was to do the research on the organizations, and
That
my
you
job
gave
to
him?
reach out to the
Okay.
public.
So perhaps it might be helpful if you include the commission members in those notifications, and we can help you identify if there's people in the community that you think should be notified.
Well, I think what you've done in the past, and maybe the full commission hasn't been aware of this, is kind of put out, hey, we're doing this region. If anyone has contacts that are relevant, please give them to us. We just spoke today about contacts in the East Peninsula, Tiburon area, and that I can share with you that I have. So as these MSRs come up, please, I would like the commissioners to, be proactive in that area. If you've got neighborhood associations that you know of, groups that need to be notified, we're trying to build that now, and I think that what you're building is going to help us in the future as well.
Yeah, and I also always ask all the districts in that area, say, are there people we should be talking with, who's out there? And they generally are pretty good. So some give, some don't. It really is a hit or miss sometimes with the individual jurisdiction.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Bailey.
Thank you. So, and I don't know if this is, maybe it's probably for you, Jason. So two of the determinations one determination we need to make here when it eventually comes back to us is whether we concur, I think it's the first one about the growth and population projection, which is listed to be 0.3%, as defined in the determination as moderate. And that 0.3%, I think, is based on an ABAG number. So I know we have members of even the Novato City Council who happen to be sort of ABAG experts, one of whom may very well be here in the audience with us. And it might be useful to just ask them before our next review of this whether they concur with that. That sort of determination can have an effect and meaning that goes well beyond our report here. And maybe that's accurate. Sounds kind of right to me, but if you haven't already done it, that specific question I think should be put to staff for Novato, their town manager, to see whether his or her sense, I don't know who it is, concurs with that. The second thing is, although it's not part of our determination, the most perplexing sort of part of the report to me anyway was this urban growth boundary. Are there issues, Dennis, like with the county that conflicts with Novato where we would need to bureaucratize, if you will, or to make greater standards by which those sorts of, that there'd be a standard for ambiguity to be resolved so that policy has more teeth, which I think is what's being recommended by the report. Does this happen, or I don't read in the papers anyway about it, but maybe it's happening and I don't know.
Well, I think if I'm correct, what they're referencing is the issues around expansion of services of some of the special districts that the city doesn't agree with because of the urban growth boundary. The city basically has taken position, I believe, they won't issue an encroachment permit for expanding a sewer line, for example, beyond the urban growth boundary. And I think that's probably the conflict that you've identified that you want to work on, and that's going to take a joint effort between the county and the city and maybe the special districts.
So that made sense to you, the way that was in the report then?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
with it.
That's it. Thank you.
Do you have comments, Jason?
I think the commissioner answered that one pretty well.
Okay, good. It is the only one in the county. I have a couple of questions for George. I did want to compliment you on adding that the table with the meeting schedule and the web links. That's really great. I think that's going to be really useful to a lot of members of the public. And the references with all the web links, I really appreciate you doing that. I would like to see more and better pension and OPEB information, and I think we can work with staff. We don't think we need George to do that, to come up with a standard set of information regarding pension and other post-employment benefit information that we'd like to include. And I'm wondering if there are any commissioners who would be interested, excuse me, in helping to compile sort of a set of standards for that. If anyone else is interested in that, then let me know. Otherwise, I will come up with something and work on it with staff. Is anybody else who's, Lou?
No, I can't speak. I'd be willing to help you with
Yeah,
that.
I
that
thought you
session,
might be
yeah.
interested. Okay, anyone else interested in pensions and OPEBs? Okay. All right, so maybe the two of us can work on that together with you. And then I'm wondering with the commission, I love what in this one is section 13, the service evaluation and determinations, which is, I sort of view as the executive summary of the thing. And I would kind of like to see it in the front. And I don't know whether, Mala, if this is something that from a statute standpoint has to be at the end. Do you have to, because if people are reading the document, that's the meat, and then the backup for it is the whole rest of the document. So I don't know whether anyone else has any feelings about that. No? Does that sound good to everybody? George, do you have any thoughts?
But I always try to put something at the end to get people to go to the end.
Yeah.
But it's great to have it up front too.
Yeah, good.
Comment, if you're ready for comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to make a comment for the record. I think we're very lucky in the Novato area to have some really good special districts that work together a lot. I know the Water District and Sanitary District has produced recycled water for the last 5 years probably for the greater Novato area, and all the districts cooperate very well. So I'm really pleased to see them come up in your report reflecting that they are so well organized and function so well. The only comment I had about the report was, I don't think that, at least I haven't found it, that we recognize the urban growth boundary. And we talk about growth and development and planned use and stuff. And I think it's be important, since it's a living document, to include something about the urban growth boundary in the wording and language now. I may have missed it
You
somewhere.
mean in the discussion of growth, is that what you mean?
Terminations. I agree,
Just
Dennis.
to recognize that it's there, because the chance of someone picking up a LAFCO document and not recognizing it is maybe important. And I just think it would be important somewhere to memorialize it.
Are you talking in section 13 or in the section about Nevada?
I'm looking like at 4.2, you talk about growth in population, and you talk about land use, and then, there may be other places, but somewhere in the document, recognizing that we have an urban growth boundary, and I think it's contiguous with the city boundary still.
Yeah, that's in there.
And
No, it's in there.
Yeah, and so and you may have it somewhere. I read it a long time ago, this document, and read it again today, but I didn't actually see it. And so I just think it's important somewhere in the document to recognize that Novato has an urban growth boundary and what that means. So, looking for it now.
It's definitely in the report, Dennis. It's just, I agree with what I thought you were going with it, which is that it's sort of a unique feature of that's consistent with the mission of LAFCO, which is to sort of in an organizational way deal with interjurisdictional issues. And I think it might be useful to include within the ultimate determination whether some reference to it.
Yeah, it is section 5.3, page 19, does have a section on urban growth boundary, but I think to your point, Commissioner Bailey, that it may be, because it's a unique feature, anywhere where you're talking about growth, you may want to include mention of that so that it all fits together. Is that kind of what you were saying?
I think maybe a little expansion, a little bit more discussion about it in the document is what you're looking for, and I think that we can easily handle that.
Yeah, and it does appear in a
Sorry
few
if
other
I
places in the, no worries. Commissioner Arnold, did you want to make some comments?
Well, sorry, I'm late. My aides wrote the wrong place, and I went to the original one in downtown San
Wondered about
Rafael.
that,
And then,
yeah.
anyway, and could have just come later right from home. So I think this report is such a good summary of what Novato has and what it is. It's county issues, right? It's county land right next to city council, and just the whole view. And so I don't have any comments on this. I hear what Dennis is saying. I think, explaining that a little more is a good idea. But I don't have any changes to it at all. I think it's exactly what an MSR is supposed to be.
All right, well, thank you. That's a nice comment to end on. Are there any further comments for staff on this? Okay, all right, seeing none, since this is an information item, we will move on to the next item, and we're moving up item 5, as you recall, so we're going to move on to item 5, adoption of Resolution 1907, reorganization of 4576 Paradise Drive, including annexation to the town of Tiburon and Corte Madera Sanitary District Number 2, File 1342. Thank you, George.
Thank you very much, George. So Jason Freed, your executive officer, what you have in front of you today is a dual annexation of a parcel of land just shy of 10 acres in size. They would like to annex both into Sanitary District Number 2 as well as into the town of Tiburon. They are in a completely surrounded unincorporated island. So this fits our dual annexation policy perfectly on paper. There has been a lot of discussion going on between us and the town of Tiburon, as well as with the county, as well as with the sanitary district. I kind of want to split this in for a second into two different discussions. One, sanitary district, one on the town of Tiburon annexation. No one is opposing the sanitary district annexation, so I want to make sure that that's perfectly clear at any discussions that we have. That part, everyone seems to be fine with and seems to be supportive of, based on the latest memo that we got today or yesterday from the town of Tiburon. They are supportive of Sanitary District 2 moving forward. Their concern, and they have raised the largest concern, is over the town of Tiburon annexation itself. What has transpired was this item originally should have been on our August agenda. I postponed it to try and allow us to have more time to have discussions with the town of Tiburon. Unfortunately, those discussions have never occurred. I've made multiple efforts to try and have direct discussions with them. Instead, what we've had is a little bit of trading of memos and, emails typed exchanges, but no direct discussions between staff, between the town of Tiburon and LAFCO. It would be my hope at some point that we can have discussions like that, but they just did not occur. So I brought this item to you today because those discussions just didn't seem to be occurring at all. There are a few things I just want to go over. You did get a letter today from, or a memo today, I should say, from the town of Tiburon, which you should have in front of you at your desk. I encourage you to reference that. I will go over a few of the items that they mention. The first one that I will put on I kind of have two big items, but there are a few smaller items as well. The first one is the city has not pre-zoned this. The applicant does say that it's been pre-zoned in the application, but it has not been pre-zoned. I think the applicant—
That was an error.
Yeah, that was an error. I think when you look at the city's general plan, Tiburon 2020 is what it's referred to as. So if you hear me say Tiburon 2020, that's the general plan for the town of Tiburon. When you look at the document, to the layperson, you could very easily see how they would think that it was a pre-zoned area, because there are some terms that are used in Tiburon 2020, but the official legal documents that need to be done were not done for pre-zoning. So that was conveyed to us by the town. That was actually Mala and their legal counsel talked earlier this week. So one of the things that I will be recommending on that item is that we put a condition on approval, should you wish to do so tonight, on this item, to have that it be conditioned on the town of Tiburon doing its pre-zoning. They have every right legally to do the pre-zoning and should do the pre-zoning. They just need some time to physically do it. So if we wanted to approve the application tonight, we could do so, but put a condition on it, giving them the ability and time to do pre-zoning. What will happen is we will do the approval. They will then go through their pre-zoning. When they're done with their pre-zoning and they then convey that to us that they have completed it and that they now have that area zoned, we would at that point then finish the application process, which wouldn't need to come back to this commission unless something big changed or something that we felt that you really need to look at again. We would just then send it to get a certificate of completion, send it to State Board of Equalization, do those last couple of steps that occur without having to come back to the commission. That is one option that you have on that item. But going through the other parts of their letter, they do refer to, and I will try and keep this at a high level for you. They do have a little bit of a misunderstanding of LAFCO guidelines and rules, but that's understandable. This is the first big application that they've gotten in quite a while. So I would understand why that would occur. One of the things that, based on LAFCO policy, is we are the lead agency for this application itself. They are the lead agency for CEQA purposes, and I'm talking CEQA purposes for both what we're the lead agency for and what they are for the pre-zoning. They get to handle pre-zoning. They are the lead agency. They go through the type of CEQA review that they think is necessary, unless they, for some reason, really requested us to do it. But I would hesitate to want to have us be the lead agency on that. And they are very clearly interested in being that lead agency either which way. So they get to be the lead agency on the pre-zoning. We are the lead agency for the application. One of the other things that they did bring up is there is a government code section 56668. It is an interesting section. It is one, and if I can get this to open, I will pull up a checklist. There is letters A through Q in this item, and I apologize, this is might be a little small on the screen, but let's see if I can figure out how to blow this up by increasing font size. Well,
Yeah,
or Control Plus, okay.
yeah, do that. Zoom in
I don't have
rather
a
than make
Control
it bigger.
Plus. Command Plus, thank you. We use Max. There, well, that didn't work. Okay, but I think you got enough there to see what's going on, and I will make this a little bit wider, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. So there are a bunch of different things that we need to do as staff when we're reviewing this. A lot of the items, to be fair, we have already addressed in the, trying to get it so I can, oh, there we go. That we already, in my opinion, addressed in the June response letter, staff report, or during the MSR process that we're currently reviewing for them. As a side note, we are in the process of doing Tiburon's thing. Jaron is working on it. So we have a lot of information at hand already. So I could go through each and every one of these individual items, but I think what you will see is most of them, you'll see this addressed in June letter thing. I wanted to stop at a couple of them that we technically did not address, but they, in my opinion, don't need to be addressed for this particular parcel. One of them is item E, which talks about determining ag land. This parcel is not in ag space, so there's no need for there to be any sort of designation. So if anyone's confused, sometimes when you do these processes, because they're so routine in nature, you normally don't go A through Q through the process, but because of the letter, or the knowing that this was going to be an issue, we brought this up. Regional transportation. This is one that is normally meant for very large developments. This is not meant for a single parcel type thing. When you're, about to produce, 1,000 new homes, you want to make sure that there's going to be proper transportation. When you're dealing with changing the jurisdictional line of one parcel, parcel with 3 buildings on it, you're not too worried about, is that going to impact regional transportation? So I just view that there's no need for this one or no impact on the regional transportation.
Does this spreadsheet constitute going through the checklist? And
Yes.
is that something that can be added to the file? Or Mala, what's the requirement?
The requirement under the act is that the factors be considered. And so I think, as Mr. Fried has just indicated, many of the factors have been considered because they're either in the staff report or the accompanying correspondence from LAFCO. The ones that may not have been considered, he is going over. But yes, it would be part of the record if that is what you're asking.
Okay, so you've essentially fulfilled
Yes.
that requirement explicitly just by putting this together?
I mean, and to be fair, I looked at, like, when we do these applications, I know that these things exist in government code, but when I'm looking at a single parcel, I normally don't look at, is the regional transportation going to be an issue? I know in the back of my head, yeah, it's covered already. So
Okay.
It's not necessarily mentioned in a document, which is why I'm pulling it out today, just to make sure you're aware of it as well. The next one that is highlighted is the timely of water supply is adequate for project. I didn't directly address this in any of my comments, but we do know that MMWD, through the MSR that we did for them, that they do have water supply for what's currently there, because they're not looking right now to change anything on the parcel. All they are looking to do is the parcel owner is looking to move into one of the buildings one of the homes that is on the parcel already, is going to fixing it up a little bit to make it habitable for his family. And we know that someone was living on that parcel prior to this person buying the land, so they have enough water for the family. You know, it's MMWD, it's a pretty big agency. One home's not going to make them go, dry in their wells. The next one is dealing with the extent to which proposals will affect city or cities and their achieving responsible fair shares of regional housing. Once again, one parcel, a little too small to be having a discussion about, is this going to have impacts on regional housing needs? It's one parcel, it's not going to fix all of our problems. So in my opinion, this item is always a too small one. This is when you're doing those big picture developments where maybe you're putting in a lot of office space and forgetting to put in your housing when you're doing that. So I don't view this one as really being relevant to this particular application, which is why it wasn't addressed prior to that. There's a P is about environmental justice. Once again, this is not an area that has environmental justice environmental justice issues. So there's no need to really worry about this particular item here.
I'm sorry, may I interrupt for a second? Jason, my takeaway from this, consistent with what Sashi's comment was, is you've actually considered each of these. Is that what your point is?
Correct.
And then Molly, you were saying you do or you do not have to confirm in writing that A through Q was explicitly considered.
You do have to confirm that the factors were taken into
And
consideration.
does that confirmation that the factors were considered, does it not appear in an adequate way in the current version of the report, or it does?
We feel like most of the factors were considered. The ones that Jason is currently mentioning are ones that are really probably not relevant, as he mentioned, such as EJ, the environmental justice, or how it affects RENA, or
But
those.
if they're not relevant or they're so de minimis, that doesn't answer whether or not there's still a legal requirement that you express in writing they were considered or not.
We are covering all of our bases by expressing that we have considered all the factors.
And that, you mean we're doing that now?
We are doing that now.
And that's adequate for purposes. It doesn't have to be expressed in the written report. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
It just has to be considered. And so we're doing that in the verbal report.
Okay.
And
I'm
any-
sorry to interrupt, Jason. My takeaway was that you actually had done all this work and
Yeah.
was just now just airing it, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it. So, well, and Mala, would just adding this spreadsheet to the report as an addendum to the report be sufficient to, very firmly, confirm that everything was considered?
Yes, it would be. And then in addition, if you did want to move forward with approval of the reorganization, we've added a finding that you have considered all of the factors.
Okay. And then let me just ask about what the legal requirement for pre-zoning is in this case.
Sure. If it hasn't been pre-zoned, which is what we've just determined that it hasn't been, is the requirement is that the commission shall impose a condition that the city pre-zone the property. So what we are recommending is that the commission add a condition, again, if you're willing to move forward, that pre-zoning occur as a condition of approval. And we are recommending a time frame for which the city can move forward on pre-zoning the property.
We can put a condition in. Is the city required to pre-zone? Can the city say they don't want to pre-zone? What are the?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I mean, we're going to put in, I think, a year timeframe. I did ask their legal counsel what would be an appropriate timeframe for them to consider pre-zoning, since they probably have other things. Their planning department may have other things on their plate. We did not get a response on the appropriate timing for the city to actually complete that. I did indicate that we did want to put a time frame so that it wouldn't be used as an ability to kind of thwart the project. But I know members of the town of Tiburon are here, so maybe that would be a good question to ask, how long that they think it would be appropriate for them to actually consider going through the pre-zoning process.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission before we open up the public hearing?
Actually, I have one more item on this list I just wanted to go over just for clarity's sake.
Okay.
Item Q, it deals with wildfire or fire hazard related things.
Wildland urban interface?
Yeah, wildland and interface. The town of Tiburon, in their memo to us, did acknowledge high and very high fire risk for that parcel. So they acknowledged it. I didn't have to really do any studying for it. I'm accepting what they had mentioned in their comments as being true for that area.
Okay, great. Okay.
I have
Yes,
a question.
Todd.
So,
Commissioner Hardy.
does making a determination one way or the other change fees that the town of Tiburon might impose on the applicant or anything like that? In other words, could they arbitrarily add fees for CEQA process or planning process or something like that?
I'm not wearing my LAFCO hat now, but they should have a fee schedule. And so typically it's reimbursed. I'm city attorney for 2 other cities. So in my experience, it's been that they'll probably have some sort of fee schedule and charge their actual costs for the time it takes to do the pre-zoning and any CEQA associated with that.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, I will now open up the public hearing. Jason or Mala, should we have the owner speak first, or is there any, otherwise I've got.
Yes, it would be good to have the applicant speak first.
Yeah, okay, if the applicant wants to come forward first.
My name's Eric Crandall. I'm the applicant. To be honest, I mean, I started this process because in looking into it to get the project connected to sewer, it says the dual annexation policy is required. That's the town of Tiburon's. They have that policy in their general plan. Their general plan also calls on you to do that as soon in the development process as possible. So I did it right away. I don't totally understand the town's reluctance. I know they're concerned about taking on responsibility for Paradise Drive, but that's not part of this application. So hence my not understanding their reluctance. Also, their general plan and their past positions on annexation have clearly wanted to control development within their sphere of influence because the development impacts the town and not the county. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those, but I think staff's report pretty much sums up most things.
Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I will call on Eli Fleischman from the town of Tiburon. City Attorney.
Good evening. I'm Eli Fletchman, Assistant City Attorney for the town of Tiburon. I'm here with our Community Development Director, Sun Quan, who is back here as well. If we have any specialty questions that he can answer as well. Thanks for having us. We're here just to make sure that we're going through the right process for doing this annexation. That's what the town's concern is. The town submitted our written opposition yesterday, which I hope you all have had a chance to read. Well, I don't want to repeat the details of it because you have it in front of you, and a lot of it's been covered by the executive officer's report, raising a lot of our concerns. I did want to point out a little technical detail about the condition that has been mentioned. The town is not the one who does who starts the pre-zoning process. It is the applicant who petitions the town for pre-zoning. And that's going to entail some other things that come along with it. It could entail some fees that happen for that. So it is on the applicant to start that process for us. The town is under no obligation to start that, and nor can the commission demand that the town start that because that is not under the commission's purview either. So in light of that response, let's see. So as staff has suggested that the commission condition approval on the town conducting the pre-zoning process, I think we could maybe, if we just amend that condition to have it say that the applicant petitions the town to start the pre-zone process over the territory, and once the pre-zoning process has been completed, then we might be able to have this annexation be approved. But that is the main point, is that it is the applicant who has to bring the petition forward in order for that to start. And then the next thing is, I did want to clarify, yes, it's true, the town does not, we don't want to have to take on the responsibility of Paradise Drive. And I understand that's not part of the application, but it was part of the conversation that was going through, and I just wanted to mention that as it was going through back and forth. And that's most of what I want to say. I do want to say on the factors under the 5668, the town did not have a chance to see any of the considerations that happened beforehand. So until right now, we haven't really had much of opportunity to see what we might disagree with. I'm not sure if there is anything that we disagree with. I'm not saying that, but that is part of the process as well. So in sum, the town is, this property, this territory has not been pre-zoned, and it is on the applicant to bring that petition to the town, and we'd be happy to take that on once it comes to us in that fashion. I'm here to answer any other questions or help clarify anything as it pertains to the town of Tiburon, and Mr. Kwan is here as well.
Any questions from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Bailey.
Hi, thank you. I understand some of the procedural and even jurisdictional challenges you're making, but other than the not wanting to take responsibility for the Paradise Road itself, are there any substantive issues that Tiburon has with the application?
Our goal here is not to stop this process, the annexation from happening. It's just to make sure we're following the procedures.
I understand that. And I am with you about some of the procedural and even jurisdictional, but the question is whether there are any substantive issues that the town has.
Perhaps Mr. Kwan, if it's okay if Mr. Kwan comes and answers some of those questions?
Yeah.
That'll be considered as part of the pre-zoning and the CEQA analysis. We don't know yet.
So, Mr. Kwan, I'm sorry, could you just introduce yourself?
Sung Kwan, Community Development Director for the town of Tiburon.
Okay. May I ask another question?
Yes.
So, okay, and I respect that answer. I don't know if there's any urgency to the applications, to the pendency of the application, but my own read here, and I don't have as much experience as some of my brothers and sisters on the council, is that there's been inordinate delay when there have been questions back and forth between your town staff and our staff. Do you know whether is there some other reluctance, or are you just overworked as a town, or why is there such a lag between requests and responses?
So we actually met with Jason a while back, the town manager and I, and we've gone back and forth. We did provide an initial letter, and we were just trying to decide, where Jason was going to go, and we felt it was best to respond to a staff report once it was decided which way Jason was going to go.
Okay. The only reason I raised that, when I read your letter today, they raise all kinds of good issues, but each one of them strike me as something that are, if not resolvable, that we would have had greater opportunity to have figured out before tonight if we'd had just a little more opportunity. It seems to me when we get to the discussion, I'll probably recommend that we simply delay this again so we can do this, but I wonder if in the interim, we might encourage you to be a little more proactive in trying to, so that we, for better or worse, whether it goes up or down, we can, at the next meeting, reach a final resolution of it.
Okay.
Jason, I'm sorry, Commissioner Arnold, and then we'll have staff.
Does the applicant know that he is supposed to submit a pre-application?
Yes, I've explained that to the applicant, that pre-zoning is required.
I know. Is he here?
He was the first one who spoke.
I know. You know that? Okay.
The look he gave while that comment was made tells me he may not know. He might want to come to the mic and make a comment about that.
We'll be happy to talk with the applicant and make sure he understands the process for the pre-zoning application, the petition. We'll make sure that he knows where a town hall is, and that'll happen. That won't be an impediment going forward.
If I can just throw in one thing, I think Mala has some comments about whether or not the applicant or the town is supposed to do that. But I wanted to make a comment based on what was just said by Mr. Sung there. We had a meeting. The meeting he was referring to was actually about the MSR process. At the very end of that MSR discussion, we had a discussion about a very brief, quick discussion about the application. And as I explained to him multiple times, I don't do a staff report until the very end because I want to get all the information I possibly can, so I can present you with all the information I possibly can. And so I always wait till the very end to do my staff reports because I want to gather as much intel as I can. I want to sit down and talk with everyone I can and be able to present you with all of the facts. And so I kept on waiting because was hoping that they would sit down and talk with me about this item, and they just didn't want to do that.
Okay, so there might have been a misunderstanding of the process here between the parties.
Yeah, and I will say we'll work hard on making this application happen. I mean, whatever misunderstandings are, our goal here isn't tonight to have a disagreement or anything. It's to make sure we follow the right process, make sure that this goes through all the due process as the commissioner mentioned, and we hear what the commission is asking for us.
Okay, so just to reiterate Commissioner Bailey's comment, it sounds like you do not have any substantive issues with this application, and you're merely concerned about following proper procedure?
Well, we have not received a petition to do the pre-zoning, so we don't know exactly what is being asked of the town yet. So it's hard for us, and I think that's what Mr. Kwan was saying. It's hard for us to guess as to what the actual application, the specifics are, until we actually get that to consider that document. We have a good general idea. From that, it does not seem there's many substantive issues with it, but we reserve the right to see the application that is presented to the town when it comes in.
Okay.
Yeah, may I say something?
Yes.
To be clear, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm okay if Tiburon's against this. I'm okay if Tiburon's for it. My point was simply, let's get to it.
Yeah, and I think and I hear you, and I'm trying to say that I agree that we need to review an actual application. We can't sit here and say it's going to be good, but we don't know what it is. But I hear you. Once we get one, we'll put forth an effort to review it and give it its due time.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have a comment from our legal counsel.
I think so. The process would be, though, if they're going forward, you may want to continue it, as I've heard, is that if you move forward with an approval of the reorganization, it would be conditioned on the annexation. I hear the town saying you need the applicant to initiate the pre-zone, which would probably be faster than the city doing it, because it's the applicant who has the desire to move this forward, not the town. In addition, if the town, I do believe the town could do the pre-zone, but it would probably be at their expense, which they have also probably no interest in doing. So I think it does make sense for the applicant to do the pre-zone, but I just wanted to clarify that the town could also do it, probably not in the same interest as the applicants.
Okay.
Does the applicant have anything to say?
Sashi?
Sorry, Commissioner Caius, and then we can ask the applicant if they have any
One
comments.
simple question to kind of follow up on Sloan's points, but very simple, okay? Does the town of Tiburon object to this annexation?
I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to reiterate, once we receive an application to pre-zone this, then we can actually consider what is being asked of the town of Tiburon. As far as it goes for annexation, annexations happen. We don't have to like it or dislike it. There's a procedure that gets followed, and it may or may not happen. I don't know if whether or not we dislike annexation or not is necessary.
You notice I didn't ask the question if you dislike it or like it. I asked the question if you object to it.
Well, yes, we object to it today because there's not been pre-zoning that's been done, which is a requirement of the government code.
Okay.
I mean, that was what was stated in our opposition, in the written opposition.
Okay. Commissioner Caius, do you have any further questions? No? Okay. Can we have the applicant just come forward? And Commissioner Arnold had asked, were you aware of the pre-zoning requirement, and do you have any other comments?
So I was aware the property was to be pre-zoned. It was my understanding in reading the Tiburon general plan, they had given it a land use designation and a density, which to me seemed like pre-zoning. They also talked in the general plan about a lot of other things that seemed like the property was pre-zoned. I just learned a couple days ago from your executive director that there's general plan land use and zoning land use. There's some difference between the two. So there was a misunderstanding. I was only made aware of that maybe Monday or Tuesday. This application has been in for quite some time, and Town of Tiburon was aware of it. Also, I'll note that in the Town of Tiburon general plan, it says the town shall pre-zone property consistent with this general plan when annexation is imminent or when the town deems pre-zoning timely and appropriate. So I also would have thought that when my application came in and they received it, it would look like annexation was imminent.
And is there, beyond, of course, wanting to complete this as quickly as possible, is there any urgency that would be cause a problem if we did delay it to the next meeting?
Not necessarily. I mean, and I'm happy to submit an application to the town for pre-zoning, now that I know that is the process and that's what was required. Had town notified me when they received the application back in probably May, I would have done it then.
Okay.
So
Okay.
really, the only urgency is not to delay as this process has gone on. And as you know, land use things can drag on for months and months and years, and every delay, adds upon,
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? No? Okay, is there anyone else who wants to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Did staff have any further comments?
No, I think the only question that would come is it sounds like there may be from some commissioners that there may be a request to delay this by one meeting. The question I would have is, do you want to delay the entire application, or are we just delaying the town of Tiburon, and do we want to move the sanitary district 2 forward? Because we could bifurcate the file and make each of them go separately.
Yeah, so we do have a dual annexation policy where we prefer to do that together. So we could suspend that policy. We could opt to do that, and we could say, let's just, there's no objection to the sanitary district annexation. Let's just do that first, and then we can continue the rest of it. We could consider it all together, continue the whole item to the next meeting, or we could approve the whole thing with these conditions. Let's hear from the commission what you'd prefer of those paths.
I guess I would defer to Jason. What's your recommendation on whether to bifurcate?
I would, if the applicant's not in a hurry to connect to sanitary district 2, you could very easily move this to December and see if everything works out. I still think, though, at the end of the day, if the town wishes to go through a full CEQA review for pre-zoning, that's going to delay the process quite a bit for the sanitary district, because we will have one file sitting and we can't move anything forward until it's done. So if the goal is, and I would have to yield, and that they're clearly not commenting on how long it would take to go through a pre-zoning, if you think it's going to be a while, I would bifurcate the file and just go ahead and move sanitary district forward, knowing that we've got the other application in hand, and if the applicant wants to move forward with the town of Tiburon as well.
And you know what, Mala, you had recommended that we ask them whether 1 year was a sufficient amount of time. And I'm sorry if you would, Mr. Fleshman, or...
You've got to, I guess, if you want it, Sasha, I'll make a motion to reopen public comment then.
Okay, well, then let's,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I don't know that we need a motion to open public comment, but we can go ahead and do it.
So your question was about the timing for the pre-zoning?
Yes, Mala, would you just restate the question?
Sure. I think if you presume you had a complete application, right, because you haven't received that application, how long would it take for the town to process it and pre-zone?
We really don't know. It depends on completeness, and then we also would have to get a CEQA consultant on board. The CEQA consultant part is going to be easy. We have a pre-qualified list. So the applicant just can go on the list, get a scope and a budget, and as long as I'm okay with the scope, then they can move forward quickly. But again, CEQA does take time. We don't know if it's an initial study. We don't know if it's an EIR. If it's an EIR, we're looking at a year.
It wouldn't be categorically exempt?
No.
Because it's within...
Oh, no. No. There are biological issues. There are fire hazard issues. There's a variety of issues that needs to be addressed.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
We'll close public comment again. Staff, do you have some comments on that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, back to the commission. You had a...
It was,
Mr. Bailey?
look, I apologize if I'm mucking it up for everybody. It's my sense that even though we may technically enjoy the right to separate the two, and we may technically enjoy the right to go ahead and make a decision as to both or either one tonight, as a practical matter, I would rather give it at least one more meeting to sort through a couple of the issues. One of them is, I would appreciate from either Jason or legal counsel before the next meeting, sort of a dogmatic answer about whether technically we're bulletproof to make a decision or not as to both or either parts. And I would appreciate before the next meeting some more better estimate, if you will, from our friends in Tiburon about both where we are in the process and what can happen, what needs to happen before we can reach some termination point, to give to inform our decision making as to whether we should reasonably expect a further delay or whether it would make sense to move forward or something in between. So that would be my proposal, that we delay it by at least, what's our next meeting, 2 months from now, December? And I apologize for the delay, the applicant. The reason I bring this series of questions is I'm sure all of you from other meetings that you sit on, we've seen a microcosm of two complaints at almost every public meeting I've ever been at ever. Number one, there was inadequate notice. It's unclear to me whether there was or there wasn't. And secondly, there was a complicated and bureaucratic process. Some of these are true, some of these are not true. Sometimes they merit, sometimes they don't. We are again enjoying the benefit of those complaints at almost every occasion, but I nevertheless, my suggestion would be let's give it one more meeting and see if we can't bring a little clarity just as a matter of prudence.
Okay.
I would just add that I would support Sloan's position with the addition that we should limit it to one more meeting before the applicant can do the annexation to SD2, because that's a substantive change that he wants to do. Being able to get connected to the sanitary district and move forward seems like a reasonable thing to do and a good thing. And so delaying it makes some sense, but let's make sure we somehow note that for the part of the connection to the annexation to SD2, we're only going to wait one more meeting.
So your suggestion is that we do not bifurcate this, that we keep it together for until the next meeting, and at the next meeting we do bifurcate it.
If we can't get the city to, work with the applicant to complete everything they need so that, we can handle that process, then yes, at that time we bifurcate and we move forward so we can do the annexation district to SD2.
So I wholeheartedly agree with sort of the concept there. I'm reluctant to bind ourselves to a decision-making when we don't know everything, but it would make sense to me if I were making this argument in front of a judge, I would ask the court to enter into the minutes of that day's proceedings that there was a strong disinclination to go beyond the next hearing, and that we ought to be well advised that at the next hearing, a decision was likely, while not constraining him or herself from actually requiring themselves to do it. That would be my suggestion.
I think that's beautifully done. Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't concede that point, except it was
Well, just because you never know, right? What happens if in December, one or the other says something smart that we haven't thought of, and that we're like, oh, we want to delay it again? We should give ourselves give ourselves the latitude to do it.
Okay. Any other thoughts from any of the other commissioners? Alternate commissioner.
I just hate to slow up the progress of individuals trying to get things done. So I concur with trying to get things done by the next meeting.
Alternate Commissioner Brown, did you have a comment, sir?
Are you kidding me? Where do I start? There's a general plan in place. The zoning is essentially laid out in that general plan. The general plan is the constitution of land use for all of the cities and towns. It seems like a pretty simple matter for the town to figure out. Furthermore, that general plan probably went through some environmental review. So there might be an environmental impact report that governs the land uses stipulated in that general plan. So this feels like the White House right now. I get it done.
Thank you, Alternate Commissioner Brown. Okay, so,
The motion is to continue to a date certain.
okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay, and would we want to add these two conditions, or these two, sorry, there was a finding and a condition? Would that be considered part of that?
Yes, we'd bring that back as part of it.
Okay, all right. So any further discussion on that motion second? All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is unanimous. All right. Moving on to item number 4, the final draft of the San Rafael Municipal Service Review.
Sure, Jason Freed. We have in front of you today a final draft of the San Rafael Municipal Service Review. I believe it is in good shape and order. There are some technical changes that we need to do to it, nothing substantive in nature. We did notice earlier this week that there was one of the tables was missing in the document, so we want to be able to add that back in. So what I would suggest once I'm done doing my full presentation, that your motion should be to approve, should you desire to do so today, the MSR allowing staff and Plan West to do any non-substantive changes to the document so we can get it in perfect shape when we put it on our website and everything is labeled final at that point. Because that would be the goal of what I would like to see done today, although it is your discretion to do so. Coming out of the MSR, there is a work plan, and hopefully this will open up on here for you. Oh, there we go. One of the things that we talked about at the last meeting was the desire to create a work plan from this. So the second half of what I'd be asking you to do today is both accept the MSR, but then the more important part to me is actually accepting the checklist of items that we should be working on coming out of this MSR. This is the kind of the process that we would like to, that I think is best utilized instead of trying to solve every little problem that may exist out there. Creating a checklist of work that needs to come from the MSR itself. So I created this to do, the first one would be to reaffirm the spheres of influence for San Rafael, Marinwood, CSD, CSA 6, 9, 13, and 19. None of those have any changes in them. So what you would be doing is coming back in December and is giving you, for lack of a better term, a rubber stamp authorizing the same SOI that existed prior. We're supposed to occasionally reevaluate the SOI and just rubber stamp what was done in the past and continue to keep the same SOI for those. So like I said, that would be planned for 2019. One of the items is to dissolve CSA 23. This is the CSA you may remember that no longer really exists. It was created originally to form in order to buy a mountaintop, to buy some open space area, and to pay off the bond to do that. That bond was paid off a long time ago. The state controller's office actually has a way to dissolve, a much quicker and faster way, the fastest way possible by LAFCO to dissolve a district if you can get put on their list. This one was not ever put on their list, even though the district has not met in a very long time, because I believe they had $5 or $18 left in their account, and the state controller's office says you have to be at 0 or under 0 in order to qualify for that list. I did talk with them. I showed them our MSR, showed that this is really a defunct CSA at this point. It should qualify. Staff agreed with me. We should be seeing this one appear on their list. They generally do it at the end of the calendar year. So by December, January timeframe, we should be getting a letter from them saying, CSA 23 should go under this process. Can you please review it and go through the process? At which point we will do so. So you won't really see anything on this until we receive that letter, at which point it kicks a timeline and process, and I will just move it through that process at that point. They're already aware of it. There is another CSA in Novato that was mentioned earlier, CSA 25. Similar situation. I think that one had $18 left in its bank account, so it didn't qualify under the state controller's list. But once again, I showed them the draft MSR, and they said, yeah, that makes sense. We'll go ahead and put that one on the list too. So we should actually see 2 of them occurring at the same time. The next one is CSA 18. This one is the one where you had 2 different districts that kind of got merged together. You had an old community service district that dealt with some rec and park space in one of the areas within it. It was called the zone of benefit. And then they also were one of those that bought a huge land of land, paid off the bond. That area that's no longer needed. If those 2 things hadn't been merged together a long time ago, we would be dissolving CSA 18. But since they got merged together, what we're looking to do is shrink the boundaries down. The CAC for CSA, the Citizens Advisory Committee, I try not to use too many acronyms there for the community service area, is already had a meeting, and I went and talked to them about what it means to really, what should the boundaries really look like and what should its sphere of influence look like. So we had a very good meeting and discussion. My goal is to let them kind of dictate to us as the boundaries of the district itself. I'm pretty clear what they should be. It's the boundaries of the zone of benefit. What the sphere of influence is brings a lot more discussion. So I want to give them an opportunity to come back and meet again. They're planning to meet later this year, beginning of next year at some point, depending on what their calendars look like, to try and put a proposal together that will go to the CSA Board of Directors, which is the Board of Supervisors wearing a different hat, to present an application to us to change its boundaries. I think that's the cleanest and easiest way for us to go. And so that is why we're putting that one down here as something that we'll work with them to get you an application. Probably sometime middle of next year, we'll have an application in front of us that's going through the process, because the CACs tend not to meet very frequently. So we've got to go a little bit based on a slow meeting schedule of theirs, and then our slow meeting schedule of only meeting every other month. The next big item is probably the biggest one that we're doing is the fire service for San Rafael area, creating a working group so we can have a discussion with Marinwood CSD, the city of San Rafael, and 2 of the CSAs in the area that all do fire service protection or have some authority over fire service protection, of figuring out, is there a way to consolidate all of these into, for lack of a better term, one fire group, whether it's a JPA, whether it's an independent district, whether it's a dependent district, whether it's the city of San Rafael contracting out to all these other people, really don't know. This is going to be a very long process. This is not something I will occasionally report back to you on, but this is not something you're going to see direct results for in front of LAFCO anytime soon. This is going to take a lot of discussion. So I want to create a working group to try and really tackle that issue. I think it's an important one. Probably the biggest item coming out of this MSR is this fire service review and trying to figure out, is there a better way to do fire service than what currently exists? It's not something that's easy to fix. So I want to create a working group. I've actually already consolidated, and we have the first working group meeting coming next week in anticipation of you saying, yes, go ahead and work on this. So please, let's approve this today so I can work on it. And then the final item is work with the residents around San Rafael. There are several pockets of unincorporated land. Some of them we know do not have any desire to be part of San Rafael. I'm not going to go talk with them because I know they have no interest whatsoever at this point. It would be seriously a waste of LAFCO resources to do those. But there were some pockets when we were doing the MSR where there were some interested people. And they said, you know what, we're not quite sure. Realization was, as I'm learning, as LAFCO is learning, as we're doing this new process for these MSRs, is there were a lot of questions I just personally could not answer that they had that were more city related. So one of the things I did is I talked with the city manager, and he's willing to assign a staff person to go out with me to these groups and sit down and talk with them. And so they can ask questions, and I will have a city representative there who can actually help them get the answers that they need, because I can't respond to what will the city do in X, or how does X, Y, or Z, like all these various things I have no ability to really answer. So I will work with them, and at some point in time, my goal is, these are very slow processes, but hopefully maybe by the next MSR, we actually have some folks saying, you know what, our little unincorporated island is interested in joining, and we can incorporate that into the next 5-year review, because we're supposed to do these every 5 years. So it's not going to be 10 or 15 years down the road, but hopefully in 5 years, we're able to have that discussion with them about incorporating an unincorporated island or two into the city of San Rafael at that time. So that's kind of the last item of the working group stuff. You have in front of you a bunch of comments that were made. You have all the comments that were made. They're all part of the public record that were made during the public comment period. We did see some comments from an individual that you also have received that are definitely outside of the public comment period, but you have those, you're aware of them, and you can make any decisions you so desire today. Overall, I think that the plan that the work that Plan West did is very good. It meets the requirements. First off, it meets the requirements that we need to meet for an MSR. And we will have a discussion. I know, Chair, you mentioned the thing about moving that last section up forward. I will have it. That could be as part of the approval. You could say, hey, let's move that up forward. Those are like things that are easily changeable that we can move sections around without a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to bring that up, and also the pension OPEB stuff. Okay, are there any questions for staff from the commission before I open the public hearing? Yes, Commissioner Arnold.
Who's on the working group that you form?
The working group is going to be made up of myself, and then I am letting Marinwood CSD determine who represents them. The city of San Rafael will decide who represents them, and the county administrator's office is going to make the determination of who represents the county. The first meeting is much more like just the senior staff, like the main staff person, and then after that we will start creating sub things, and more people will be brought in. But it's really just, let's just sit down once and figure out what is everyone's concerns, what are the big ticket items we really need to be looking at. One of the big questions going to come, I'm sure, out of this is there's going to need to be some studies that are done might need some outside consultants, and how do we pay for those types of things? It's going to be part of that question.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, then I will open up the public hearing, and I have one sheet here from Stephen Nessel, if you want to go first. Sure. Stephen.
Stephen Nessel, Marin, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. Maybe I didn't quite understand what was going on tonight, but I'm actually here to, what I think is to correct the record and the comments that I had made. Last time when I spoke about Marinwood CSD and some of the problems they have, the difficult, it's an insular body, which really pretty much answers to no one. And I'm not here to criticize them, but to point out the fact that you've got an organization that needs overhaul. And so my recommendation as far as the MSR is to go much further than simply the fire department. Once the fire department, we have three things in Marinwood. We have the fire, we have the recreation department, and then we have the parks and the lights, which don't mean anything. But once the fire department's gone, there's really the parks that are left. And we have a antiquated structure, an insular body that pretty much does not answer to anyone. And we would be much better off with a professional organization. Now, my comments on the worksheet that you received, I did not write those. Those were edited, and I objected to the way that they were edited, but be it what it may, I did provide a letter of my concerns, and I ask you tonight to approve the part one of the proposal, which is the fire merger, but also to request that it go a little bit further, because what we're left with is not something that is very healthy and serving the community of Marinwood. We need professional government in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment during the public hearing? Yes, ma'am. And I don't have a sheet from you, so if you could state your name so that we can have it for the minutes.
Layla Hill from Los Ranchitos. I just
you.
have something very simple to say, and I want to thank Jason for working with us as closely and cooperatively on the MSR, and we in Los Ranchitos are very happy with the section on us and your understanding and attitude going forward. That was that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Layla. Appreciate that. Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any questions or comments from the commission on the San Rafael MSR?
Just to follow up on the question that was raised, I think if the fire discussion goes well, it'll take a number of years, which means that we probably would have an opportunity to revisit some of these other services should a change happen on that part of the Marinwood slate where the fire department goes somewhere else. So I think in answer to your question, I think we can visit that at the next 5-year period probably,
Yeah, we will review all parts. I will make this comment. I did do extra research and went over to Marinwood, looked at some of the stuff that Mr. Nessel brought up in his original comments to us, and I did not find the same information that he was claiming was occurring. So at the end of the day, whether or not we agree or think that, an event is being held and it should be a profitable event, or they're just doing it because it's a great community event and they don't want to make a profit on it, they're just looking to break even, that's a decision that their board of directors gets to make and not us. It's not something that we get to do. So those types of things, as much as I appreciate his opinion on stuff, it's the decision of an elected board of directors. It's the members of Marinwood who elect that board. So if the members of Marinwood are not happy with and think that they should be doing less or doing more, that's up to someone to run for that office, convince people that their position is the right one, and get enough people to vote for them. And I think that is what is occurring. So while I appreciate his concerns and I appreciate that he has every right to have his opinions, and I'm not going to disrespect those opinions, I don't think that his opinions are held necessarily by the general membership of Marinwood CSD, because they elect the board, and that's what the board's been doing for a while.
But irregardless, we could review this in 5 years as part of our normal.
We will review everything all over again, starting from scratch. So yeah, everything gets re-reviewed, and in theory, hopefully within 5 years, the fire department stuff and there will be a major change in some ways, but in theory, it shouldn't. If it's done correctly, Marinwood CSD should still exist with everything but its fire department, and it will. We know what the fire department's budget is. We know what the rest of its budget is, and those two will simply go in their different directions at some point between now and the next MSR.
And I really want to point out that this is really solid LAFCO work, doing this working group, and this is something that has been attempted for many years and has not been able to happen. And I think LAFCO, being the neutral convener, has a really important role for this type of consolidation. And this is kind of the work we're here to do. So the working group, I think, is a really key piece of that. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Kais.
I just add that I think the work was good to create the MSR. It's good job. And for Mr. Nestle, I appreciate the comments. I mean, obviously you have a passion about this, and so participating and informing us about those issues, I think is valid, and again, respect that. but it is outside the scope of what LAFCO can do to try to address them. But I applaud your comments and the passion to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Caius. Okay. Do I have a motion then to approve the draft and the work plan? Is that what we've got?
Yeah,
Draft
the motion would be to plan the final draft, turned into final, allowing staff to make any non-substantive changes needed in the process, and to approve the work plan.
Got it.
Okay. My comment about adding in the pension OPEB info would we not be able to do that, or is that something we could do for Novato and then maybe?
Yeah, I think that's something, if we wanted to do it, because of the amount of work I think that would go into it, we would need to keep it as a draft and not approve stuff today.
Okay.
I just think that is a substantive enough change that we really should be letting people have another comment period on it.
Okay.
I think as we're doing, we're learning, and we can add more in as we do each one.
Okay. All right. Okay, does anyone want to make that motion?
From the general manager, I will.
All right, moved by Commissioner Arnold. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Caius. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? All right. Motion carries. Thank you very much for your participation, both of you. All right. We are moving on to item 6, which is a commendation of our alternate commissioner, Matt Brown. Staff, do you want to say anything there, or am I?
Yeah, I will make a quick comment while that's being passed over. So those that may not be aware, Commissioner Brown did not run for re-election for this November. So his seat will have expired. He will no longer be eligible to serve on LAFCO because by the December meeting. So we are saying a nice farewell to him today and thank him for all of his years of service. We do have an award or commendation and stuff that Commissioner McEntee will talk about now.
All right, well, I would like to read this resolution of commendation for Matt Brown by the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission, expressing its gratitude for his service. Whereas Matt Brown served the citizens of Marin County from December 2016 to October 2019 as the alternate city member of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission, and whereas his objectivity, honesty, and compassion in the practices of local government has earned the respect of his colleagues, representative of other public agencies, as well as the general public, and has been an invaluable resource to the commission. And whereas during his time as alternate city member of this commission, Matt Brown did an outstanding job by providing a unique perspective and consistently maintaining a positive spirit. And whereas Matt Brown devoted many hours attending commission and committee meetings to provide leadership, commitment, and continuity in order to achieve Marin LAFCO's purpose to encourage the orderly, efficient, and responsible organization of local government in Marin County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of this commission wish to express their genuine appreciation and gratitude for Matt Brown's service on the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission and lasting contributions to the people of Marin County. So thank you very much, Commissioner Brown. I don't know if you have anything to say before we pass this resolution.
Just thank you very much for that for the commendation. It has been an honor. You know, LAFCO is one of those things that I would say that 99.7% of people in the state of California have no idea what it's about, myself included. And so I asked to be a part of this commission so that I could learn more about the arcane underbelly of government and governmental services and how they're allocated and administered. And it's been interesting. It's been an honor, and I've enjoyed serving with all of you. I'm inspired by the dedication and commitment of many of the members up here, you know, like Chair Blanchard, and Sashi has stepped into his shoes in a very powerful way. And like I said, that is an inspiration. I leave government, as you saw earlier, a little bit frustrated. Government is a challenging industry for not only for the administrators, but also for the public. I do wish us all well as we work together through some very serious challenges on this planet and in our state. And so thank you all for your service and for this commendation. Thank you to staff as well.
Thank you very much, Alternate Commissioner Brown. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one final thing. Staff wanted to thank you personally for all of your hard work. We did get you what we thought was going to be a large cookie. It turns out the picture and what they deliver are two completely different things. But if you would like to share, you're welcome to that, or it's actually cut in enough pieces to share with your fellow commissioners. But since you're leaving, you may decide you no longer need to kiss up to them.
I'm delighted to share with everybody. And get another knife and cut this even smaller.
Actually, it's enough for all the commissioners.
Okay.
It's
Very good.
perfectly
All right,
sized.
do I have anyone want to make any comments?
I just have one comment, and I just want to personally say that I've enjoyed sitting at the kiddie table with you for all these months.
Yes,
And
pleasure's mine.
you've been a great partner over there on the sidelines.
Thank you, Lou.
Is there any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, I will close the public comment. Would anyone like to make this motion?
I'll make the motion, Matt. We all appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
And the cookie.
We are going to miss you.
I won't go far.
Well, hopefully, maybe we'll see you out in the audience there pretty soon. All right, moving on to Cal LAFCO related items.
In front of you today, you have two. One is more of an informational item, although you can take action on it. The second is, and we'll do the second one first actually, is every year at the Cal LAFCO conference, you need to elect someone who will be the official voting member for LAFCO. I'm missing that. So we will have that. So the only person who has mentioned that they are attending this year's conference, although not for the entire conference, but for part of it, is the chair. So that would be the natural person that you would select to be your voting member, but it's up to the body to decide. Traditionally speaking, we normally elect the chair as first voting. We're also allowed an alternate, but no second person right now has indicated they're going. If anyone is going, please let me know ASAP, because beginning of next week is the cutoff for registration. As a small reminder on that, it is at a union boycotted hotel, so staff is not attending, but that does not mean it's up to individual commissioners if they wish to attend themselves. So that is what I have to report on that. So that would be action item one, would be to just determine who your voting member is, and I will report that to Cal LAFCO on your behalf.
Okay, and then there's a second item. Do you want to take care of that first?
I was hoping you would do the vote, because then the other part is just more of a discussion.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion or any discussion on that? Anybody else plan on going? Nope. Okay. Motion, anyone?
Oh, a move Sash should be the voting member. That's what you want, right?
Yes, yeah.
Well, I didn't know.
Since
you're
I'm
still
going, I'd
planning
like
on
to,
going.
yeah, sure,
Okay.
I'll do it.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Was there any public comment? Hearing none, close public comment. Motion carries.
All right, perfect. So the second part of the item is Cal LAFCO is going through a reorganization of its dues process. It is in part very needed. I don't want anything I'm about to say tonight to discourage you from actually moving forward with trying to do something around its dues process. But they have been running a small deficit for a few years, running off of reserves. What occurred a few years ago was Cal LAFCO decided to become a much more professional organization. We hired Pam Miller, who I don't know if she's been to this meeting. She hasn't been here since I've been here. I was about to say she's been to our meeting, but she was actually at a San Francisco LAFCO meeting that I was at near the end of my time there, so hasn't been here recently. But she's been doing a great job on behalf. We've been getting a lot of good response from the state legislature when LAFCO-related items are coming before them. And she's done an excellent job, and we really do need the budget that they're looking to try and get. The problem that we've had is that traditionally the way the budget has worked the last few years is LAFCOs were basically broken into three groups: your urban group, your suburbs group, and your rural group. And basically, whichever group you were put in, you're basically given an allocation of how much you're going to pay. What they're looking to do now is change it to more of a what I call a three-legged stool approach. It's based on, there's a base fee that everyone pays no matter what size you are. There's then an amount per population that you pay, but they put a cap on, the third stool is putting a cap on how much you pay, because if they didn't put a cap, you would have someone like Los Angeles paying god-awful amounts of money, and that would not be fair to them. So the question comes in, did they create, I agree with that concept. I think that concept actually works very well. My concern is how LAFCO is currently set up, as well as how they're implementing this in basically 1 year. My biggest concern is what you will get when if you look up on the screen here, you'll see a bunch of various columns. This column here is kind of one of the key ones, and we are located, where is Marin at?
Right underneath Fresno.
Yep, yeah, there we go, right here. So what we would be seeing is a almost $1,400 increase in our dues if the current structure that they're proposing at the annual conference goes through. To be fair, I don't see it not going through because there's enough board members and enough LAFCOs voting for it that it probably will go through. But I just wanted to bring this up, that's where we would fall. What you do see, though, is there's a big discrepancy with some LAFCOs. You have some that are paying $3,800 more from the current year to next year's dues. And then you scroll down, you see a bunch of them that are the very largest LAFCOs, like Los Angeles, that are only paying $286 more. And that, to me, just does not scream equity at all. You have a very differential viewpoint going on there. You even have a few, although there is a rule in place that says these ones down here that are paying less than they were paying the year before are going to continue to pay the same amount. So anyone that's a negative is really zero. But still, you have this very big discrepancy. Some of these LAFCOs, when you look at this next column, which is column G here, you will see that there's a few like this one here, where they're actually paying twice as much as what they're paying this year. Actually more, there's 3 of them that double their dues based on this. And I just think that there needs to be a more equitable approach to how Cal LAFCO approaches. I know this is a difficult thing for them to do. I've asked them to send me like how they did all the calculations, because I would love to actually sit down and figure out, is there a more equitable way to do this? Is there perhaps a multi-year strategy that should be done? Would be the approach I would take. So like no one has to pay more than $1,000 in 1 year increase type of like ways to make it so it's not such a hit on some of those biggest ones, because I do have issues when one LAFCO, and it's not even us, I have issues for other LAFCOs when they're paying $3,800 more, and yet you have other LAFCOs, especially the biggest ones, that are seeing a $200, because of the cap, the population cap, they're only seeing a $286 increase. The other part I will also mention is just how the board was made up. Several years ago when I was still in San Francisco, I remember this debate, although I wasn't paying as much attention to it because San Francisco just at the time was not involved in Cal LAFCO very much. We paid our dues, and that was about all we did with them. I occasionally did stuff with the Bay Area executive officers, but we weren't active in statewide LAFCO stuff. The southern region, which is Los Angeles, Orange County, some of the very big ones down there, there's 6 counties down there. They were arguing that they didn't get a fair shake at the board of directors, and they wanted to change because they were, at the time, were paying very close to what the rest, some of the other regions were paying, and they're like, we deserve equal say on the board of directors. So they were given 6 LAFCOs, were put into one region, and then you had Central, which had 19, you had Northern, which is 18. Those are, a lot of the Northern ones, by the way, I have no issues with them. They are very small, most of them part-time LAFCOs, they don't have full-time staff. George is actually the executive officer for, or Plan West Partners, I should say, is the executive officer for multiple LAFCOs. I mean, that's how part-time they are. They share, LAFCOs share services. That's what several LAFCOs do. And then the coastal region, which is our region, gets 15 seats. But when you look at our 2020-2021 dues, you all of a sudden start to see a very big discrepancy. The southern region only is paying $57,000 about. We're paying in the coastal region $113,000. We're paying almost twice as much as them, and we have way more LAFCOs and the same number of seats. There's something, if they're going to go with this process, they need to rearrange how the board is made up. It is not fair to the other regions, particularly central and coastal, who based on this are paying a disproportional amount of share, plus a disproportional amount of the difference between them. It just doesn't seem fair. I will also add, when you look at the southern region, their entire dues go up as all 6 of them by $1,800. There are LAFCOs individually that are paying more than their entire region is paying. And yet the voice is not the same across all the regions as far as how many there are.
And so this would have to be some kind of bylaws change to change the way the board of directors.
Yeah, what they will be doing, and this will mostly impact the Chair McAdee, this will impact you since you'll be the one there voting on our behalf, is This will be in front of them on Thursday morning when they do the general session business meeting. So that is something that is up there that will be discussed. I don't know if this body wants.
Dues or the board of directors makeup?
The board of directors are made up of 4 members from each of the 4 regions.
No, but is the question of the makeup of the board of directors, is that to be addressed on Thursday as well?
No, that is not currently on their agenda.
So you're just saying if this were to pass, we would then want to push for a bylaws changed?
That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so does the commission, would the commission like me as their voting delegate to vote yes or no on this proposed dues change based on the staff report? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I close
have a
public
question.
comment. Go ahead.
And maybe Jason, you know this. It sounds like you're saying that you believe it's going to pass.
That is my opinion. It will likely pass.
So a no vote would be a symbolic vote,
Correct.
which is not bad. You're just kind of acknowledging that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
Any other thoughts?
The fees themselves are not punitive to our organization, right? I mean, it's not a big,
I mean, could we handle a $1,400 increase? Yes, we can make the budget work. I mean, at the end of the day, unfortunately, one LAFCO who called and talked to me about this, their opinion was, oh, well, if we have an increase, we just pass it on to all of our members anyways. So the question is, if we're hopefully running a very tight budget, and if we are, and we have a $1,400 increase, we would then be passing that on to all of our member agencies.
So it's all of us who
Yeah.
would then absorb that. Yeah. Okay. I agree with Commissioner Caius that this would be a symbolic vote, but if we would like to lodge said symbolic vote, I'd like to hear that from you all. It sounds like there's maybe not a strong opinion about that.
If you voted no, how would you explain it? Would you have a,
I don't know that there would be. I think it would
There
just be a
wouldn't be,
yay or a nay.
okay.
Yeah. I don't know whether we want to submit a
There is an
letter of
opportunity
protest
if you wanted to make a speech or a comment on any item. You have the ability to raise your hand and make comments during the general session meeting. So if you wanted to, I could, if the body wanted to, I could help write up comments and give them to the chair, or the chair can make her own comments. I could work, we could figure out a way to make comments if you wanted to say why we're doing it.
Sashi, I would just say we should pick our battles, and this just doesn't feel like something worth going to the mat for. I'm totally indifferent to it. If you want to do it, I'll support you on it. But my own perspective is pick what's important and fight for that, and the other things just like water off a duck's back.
Yeah. If this is going to be something that is likely to pass anyway, then maybe we put our political capital into the board of directors composition fight. Okay. All right.
Jay, help me understand. Because looking at the per capita dues, it looks like they capped that at some point.
Yes, correct. It's 700,000, I think, is the cap that they used.
Okay.
Because there are objections from the large LAFCOs.
No, I get why, but
Yeah.
ABAG uses a similar formula, but I don't think they cap it. They just pay the per
Partly
capita.
because ABAG has counties that are much more closely aligned in population. I mean, we're talking the very smallest population of a couple thousand people compared to Los Angeles with a few million people, more than 10 million people. So
Yeah,
you
no,
really
I get
have a
it,
big disparity
that's
thing
what's
there.
really noticeable. They have 10,000 people and they're paying the same as Alameda.
Yep.
That's 1,700,000.
Yep. Okay. So it sounds like the commission would not like to necessarily go to the mat for this particular issue. So we would be instructing me to vote yes onto that, yes for the dues. But hearing staff's objections and hearing the concerns about the board of directors composition, maybe we can have staff come back to us with more information on opportunities to work on that part of it. Okay. Anything else on this item?
Nope, that's it.
All right, so then we're going to move to the executive officer's report.
Sure. Go through this as quickly as I can here, so stop me if you want to ask a question on one of these items. In front of you, you have our budget update. We are in good shape. At this point where we should be in our fiscal year budget, we should have spent about 25% of our overall budget, and we are just under 20%. I believe it's 19%. I'm doing this off of memory, so if someone wants to correct me in the staff report, what I said there, that's what you should go by. So I think we are in good shape overall, and in some ways we are actually probably in a little bit better shape than that really shows, because I anticipate that our most of our costs, especially for professional services, are occurring now. And by the time the second half of the year comes, we should have paid off most of Plan West should be done. And so a lot of our professional service costs will go away. There won't be as much of that. There'll still be a few bills that we pay under that item, but a lot of our stuff should actually be done. So we should be in pretty good shape by the end of this fiscal year, be under budget if things continue to track as they are going for the first quarter of the current fiscal year that we're in. Going on to current and pending proposals, we had one of the big items today. In the report, there is mention of the certificate of completions not having been received. We actually did receive one this week back from the county recorder's office. That was 400 Upper Toyon Road. So that one now, we're waiting for them to provide a check. Have they provided? No, they haven't provided the check. Okay, they're mailing us a check. So by the end of this week, beginning of next week, we should have a check from them. And we will then send that one off, and that one will be completed and done. The other one took a little bit longer for us to get over for the certificate of completion for mapping purposes, but that one is over there. So we're still, once that one gets back, we will get the check from them and finalize that one as well. So that's exciting stuff that we're getting those through the process and done. There is one item, and normally Commissioner Murray asks me about this one, so I'll just report on it since even though he's not here today. We do have one that's coming up on its annual review at the next meeting. It is the Water District one where you might remember this is a very old application where we had sewer and water. The sewer stuff went through quickly. It was before my time here, so I can't really get into the details on the sewer one. But there was a holdup on the water one where the Water District needed something to be agreed to. I'm hoping that they get that one completed. I am going to be informing them come tomorrow that they're on the agenda for the next meeting. If they want, either they complete by the next meeting or they have to come back to us for an extension. The impression I had gotten from at least Commissioner Murray and some of the commissioners at the last meeting that we had was perhaps we should put a very strong word to them that they need to resolve this because this will be the second extension and they should have resolved their issues by now. If they're going to resolve them, there comes a point when you either have to say you're resolving or you're not. And so we might want to put a little bit heavier hand on if they haven't resolved about whether or not we really just want to give it, for lack of a better term, an auto stamp approval to it, but whether or not we really want to ask some questions as to why it's continuing to be the way it is. So I will let them know of that. It's coming because I'm sure Commissioner Murray, if he's at the next meeting, will ask those questions either which way. So those are my the basic high-level stuff from the current and pending proposals. One other thing on the current or pending proposals is last week or the week before, the Board of Supervisors, acting as the Murray Park Sewer Maintenance District, approved being merged into Ross Valley. You may remember this comes out of one of our MSRs. Ross Valley is doing a similar resolution to them next week. I will be going to that meeting just to make sure that everything goes through. Assuming that they get us all their information in a timely manner. We actually today received the county's packet of information. Assuming Ross Valley gets that information to us, you will see at our December meeting, we will have a new application and potentially have the ability to approve this new application for a merger of Murray Park into Ross Valley. So a lot of work has gone into that, and we will talk a lot more about it at the next meeting, should it all go through. But I am very excited. It's looking like this will be our first big thing that has occurred since I've been here about getting this merger that, as Supervisor Rice told me in a public meeting that she attended that we were doing on this subject matter, she's been looking at this for like 10 years and is going to be so happy when it finally gets completed. So we will have done some really good work there and making that get that across the finish line. So update on MSRs. We had 2 MSRs today, but we're about to come to you with a 3rd MSR. We're really cranking these things out these days. Jaron over there has been working very, very hard. We are somewhere between 40 to 60% possibility that we could get an MSR to you before the December meeting and potentially have a December meeting held down in the East Peninsula somewhere in the Tiburon, Belvedere, Strawberry area. Although we are very much dependent on the districts getting information back to us so we can make sure we have a good public draft to go out. We're using a similar process to what we did, what George presented to us. We're using that same basic template, although as we're learning more, as you're asking more questions at each of these things, we are coming back and doing this. So while I say somewhere between 40 and 60, I'm saying that partly because we're adding pension stuff. I know Jaron had been doing some work already on that, so we just want to sit down and make sure we've got what we really need for that before we come out with the public draft, because I want to come out with that public draft having what you're looking for as far as information. So that will mean Lou and Sashi will have to sit down with staff relatively soon, so we make sure we have that information in hand. Otherwise, it's quite possible, and I don't want anyone to be disappointed if it ends up getting pushed back to the February meeting to do the public draft. I want to make sure that we get these done correctly, and since this is Jaren's first one doing it, granted, we have a good template to use, but it's still learning a process. And so the first one will always be the hardest and the longest to do. And also, this is the Tiburon area, and there are some very old issues that need to be addressed, and we need to figure out a smart way to have a discussion about them in the MSR to set them up.
Yeah, and if there are thorny issues, we want to allow lots of time
Yeah.
to resolve them. And if we want to even, put the draft out in December and give like 2 meetings if we even need to do that, I think we really want to give this a lot of room to breathe if there's some troublesome issues.
Absolutely. This is definitely one that could take multiple drafts, multiple meetings to do. I have no problem doing that for this one. Although remember, we don't actually solve problems in the MSRs based on how we do ours. We actually identify them, make sure we have have the general information out there, and then create our working groups to sit down and act as adults and see if we can't resolve all of our issues together.
Right.
So that's where we're at with the MSRs. The last item on today's agenda, Executive Officer Report, and really for today's agenda, is the Strategic Plan Workshop. This is, you may remember in the staff memo, is your opportunity to have a discussion today about what you want to get out of the workshop. I posed some questions in the staff memo. Last year, Bill was very appreciative when we had this discussion. He actually found it very useful for him while he's not here today. We do put this up on YouTube. He's actually on vacation right now, but when he comes back from vacation, we'll have a chance to actually sit down and look at it, and it will help him strategize and help me as well work with him to strategize the best workshop we can get.
Is there, the only thing I recall us kind of talking about lately that might be a good workshop item was a policy kind of discussion around what the implications of a sphere of influence are. Does anybody else have any other big topics? That one was like a big, meaty topic to.
That's a good breakout group. One that I was thinking about, do we want to have a discussion about MSRs themselves? Because we will, by that point, in theory, have had our third draft out there, and do we want to have a good sit down? Is this going in the right direction? What is it like? Do we want to have that type of discussion, or are we comfortable enough with what you've been doing?
I think we could have maybe a small discussion about that if, kind of summarize the, progress we've made on that. We added this, we added that. You don't have to give a whole laundry list of all the things, but, here's where we are and here's kind of our philosophy around that. I think that'd be fine to do. Also, as it feeds into the SOI discussion, because the sphere is part of that, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I'll also voice that you currently have it scheduled from 9 to 3, so 6 hours. It seems like a lot of time. I'm a very, very, very strong advocate of planning. I think that that's a great thing to be doing. I'm concerned, though, that we expand what we're doing just to fill the 6 hours. So 6 hours seems like a lot of time.
Okay. Anyone else would like to, maybe we make it just 9 to noon? Everybody okay with that one? Yeah, does that sound good to everybody?
9 to 1.
9 to 1? 4 hours, all right. Compromise. 9 to 1?
9 to 1. You don't
Okay.
get lunch this way now. You're going to miss your lunch. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'll have a discussion with Bill and make sure that he thinks that we can get what needs to be done.
Okay.
But last time we said 9 to 3, but we actually finished closer to 2, and you had a nice meaty discussion at the beginning of the meeting about your executive officer position. So I think that we could probably get something done between 9 and 1 without too much problem. But let me check with Bill.
Yeah, and we don't need, I know we don't have a bunch of new commissioners, but do we feel that we need to have a LAFCO one-on-one session? I think we don't need to do that this time around. I think maybe the newer members who might want that could do something kind of with the executive officer.
Okay.
Okay, so if we don't need to have your 101 bit and we don't have the other thing, and I don't think we need to have legal counsel there as last time we did because of the executive officer bit.
Yeah, correct.
Save us a little money.
Only other thing I would ask you for is this LAFCO has done an annual or a workshop once a year. The last one we did an 18-month one just because it was done so farther late and it didn't make sense to do one a few months later. And also we had a lot to deal with. Do we want to continue to do 1 years, or do we want to look at a 2-year work plan type workshop where we're not just doing 1 year, but we're doing multiple years at the same time?
I'm inclined to say maybe we do another 1 year and then we look out because we're still kind of getting our sea legs, I think, here.
Okay.
How everybody feel about that? Yeah? Okay, so for the moment, we'll do 1 year, but we'll look at maybe doing 2 year the next time around.
Okay, sounds good. Any other comments on this so Bill has them on the record and he can help plan this?
Nope, and this was informational, so I don't know if we need to ask for public comment, but is there any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Okay. Any commissioner announcements and requests? Okay, seeing none, do you have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Aye, well, we adjourn to December 13th in the usual place. Thank you.
Sashi.